Hi there. This is my name's Lou Martin, and this is my Awakened Spirits Network. And I'm nervous, honored, and excited one more time to be in the company of one of the most amazing mystics I've ever met in my life, and a gentleman who I've had the privilege of working with many times now, David Maria. David, how are you?
Good morning, Lou, or good afternoon, your time. And
Okay.
I am really wonderful. And yes, as we spoke of before we started, your bandwidth is a little wonky.
We'll do our best.
So we'll do our best.
Yes, thank you, brother. So I'm just going to say here at the top, and then we'll come back to this. I've been in your Freedom from the Known class now for two different segments, and they've been amazing. And I'm so grateful to you for being a part of these groups, and the guided meditations and the space that you hold. I was thinking a minute ago, it's a very safe space. It's a very welcoming space, as you are yourself. It's a safe place to be vulnerable, and it allows, as you do, a lot of depth and a lot of intimacy, and that's how you show up as well. You're always very good at sharing your own personal ups and downs, your breakthroughs and breakdowns, like the rest of us. And and I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing up and being such a huge blessing in my life these last several months. So thank you, brother.
Oh, you're very welcome. Most everybody that knows me also knows that. Yeah, I know who I am, or I mostly know who I am. But I also don't think that that's any big deal at all. I don't think there's anything special about me because at its core, at the very heart of everything, there's no difference between you and me. Yeah, we're different. We're unique in our own way, but at our core, everybody's the same. So you've heard me talk about it in class, and I love this Ram Dass quote that all spiritual practices are illusions created by illusionists in order to escape the illusion.
It's a good one.
And knowing how much I love that, then I offer some what I consider to be some really cool illusions to
Yeah,
help people get out of their illusion of their self.
yeah.
And I when that quote came to me, I pondered it for quite a bit. So because I took it to heart and really asking myself, just what is it that you offer?
Right.
And it turns out that I offer the same thing that almost every other really high frequency teacher on the planet offers, which is just presence.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
When we're together in a class or in working together in a session,
yeah,
I see you,
yeah, yeah,
and I remember who you are.
yeah,
That creates a space around you of very, very clean, very pure crystal and light
yeah,
that allows you, even if it's just temporary. I can't speak to how permanent it is for each individual,
mhm,
but for the moment, it allows them to experience themselves too.
yeah, yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, that was lovely. Um, the Let me just share the structure of the class in general is we take the first hour. David takes the first hour and offers us the space to check in and often process what's happened over the last week, especially in terms of the previous week's meditation, and then the second hour, and sometimes into the third hour, David is leading us in a guided meditation. And one of the consistent things for me is I know that I'm going to catch up on my rest in David's class, because I always go completely lights out during the meditation, and then float back in the last 5 minutes or so. But you have a fantastic cosmology, would be my word for it. A brilliant, very detailed presentation of reality and the human story, or the human purpose, or the human role, or the human journey, maybe within our illusion, within our reality. Would you like to share a little bit of how all of that came to you, and how you became this mystic and this teacher?
Well, I've always had those qualities, but let's just say that my childhood growing up wasn't an ideal childhood.
Right.
I could laugh and say it's certainly not a childhood anybody that I know would ever choose to walk into, and yet it's always exactly, completely and totally our choice to walk into whatever it is that we walk into.
Sure.
So in let's just say that in my youth, I was very misguided, but I've always had the dreams, and I started having in-depth waking experiences in 2011, and then more in 2012 for the 2012 global opening.
Right.
But in 2018, myself and two others, Teresa Leitnerger, who I know is a good friend of yours, and also Beth Curia, who you should know because she's in Ireland also.
I don't know Beth.
We were all called to go to Kenya, to Africa, and my calling came through a series of dreams in which in this dream, 3 African kings appeared to me and invited me to go into the bush with them. And I knew that invitation was, come to Africa. There is much here for you to remember and recover. And through just maybe another dozen really prophetic dreams that all came true, by the way. And untold miracles, because I couldn't afford to go. It was the last minute, and Kenya and Tanzania are really popular vacation destinations for Christmas for people from all over the world. They come for safaris. So the closer you get to the dates of around Christmas, the more expensive everything becomes. So one thing led to another, and we all ended up there. We I made a miscalculation as to where we were actually going to go. Well, it turns out we were going to attend the annual prayer vigil, which happens once a month or once a year on December 27th, that circumambulates around the mountain, around Mount Kenya or Mount Kirinaga. And we ended up on the northwest side, and it turns out that it actually starts on the southeast side. So, and we were approximately 2 hours away. So we were driving there early in the morning. They had said that we had communicated with them the day before, with the organizers, and they had said it was going to begin at 9. It turns out that they left early, didn't let us know, and it was they were at 8 o'clock. They were already there.
Well,
started calling us, started asking, where are you? When are you going to be here? And those phone calls went on for a bit, and then what happened was, at one point I said, look, this is an all-day event. At a minimum, it takes 7 hours to drive around the mountain. It's a little over 450 kilometers.
Wow,
And
that's a big mountain.
just go ahead and start without us. We'll catch up. And their response was, no, you don't understand. You have to be here. And we're looking at each other like, what is it? What does that mean? What are they talking
Right,
about?
right.
We have no idea what they're doing. Yes, unbeknownst to me, they knew we were coming. The Kikuyu people in the Kikuyu seers in Kenya are very connected with the Hopi seers here in the U.S. in Arizona.
Wow.
They knew that we were coming. So, unbeknownst to us, they'd already told the crowd that we're coming. Whatever that means. So we arrived there, and this is before COVID.
Right.
And there was maybe 800 people, maybe a few more. I'm hazy on numbers when crowds get really, really big.
Sure.
So I do know that when we got out of the car, when we arrived, and Teresa and I are the only white people there.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, this is going to be really fun." And we walked across the road from where we were parked just to join the crowd at the back, because there's obvious a group of officials up front. And no, they came and got us and pulled us up front, turned us around to face the crowd, introduced us. It was both really humbling and embarrassing all at the same time. And then we met all of the officials, all of the organizers, and except for a couple of them that I've become good friends with since then, I wouldn't recognize them. Certainly wouldn't remember their names. And then I met the obvious priest that was there to officiate the ceremony, the invocation. And when I looked at him, he was the man from my dreams.
Wow.
His name was Samuel Kamitha. And he looked at me and smiled and said, "David, I dreamt of you." And I said, "Samuel, I dreamt of you too." And I was very calm on the outside. On the inside, absolutely not. I was just a complete, my energy field was like this. It was just being completely blown up.
Wow.
So we talked for a little bit. And then he said, "Obviously, there's a large crowd here that are here for today's ceremony. So let me do that, and then afterwards, then I'll meet with you and your friends, and I'll give you a blessing." So he gave it right afterwards. And please understand, this is a really big thing that happens in Kenya. There was 5 or 6 television crews there.
Wow.
There was some radio stations there.
Wow.
And after the invocations, one of the TV crews took their microphone and just stuck it right in my face and said, "Why are you here in Africa?"
Right.
I had no idea what I said. Apparently, at that moment, I had the gift of tongues, and what that meant is that I had 13 of them, and they were all speaking somewhat gibberishly in different languages, and very, very wisely, not a single TV broadcast that I said. So I was just in such an altered state.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, Samuel gave Teresa and Beth up whatever the blessing is that they concur. And when it came time for me to receive it, Samuel heard that still voice that we all recognize. He heard it say, "No, give him everything." And it was like being struck by lightning 10 or 12 times in just a few seconds. My body was just
Wow. Wow.
And it was kind of like an instantaneous awakening.
Wow.
And the kind that almost goes to be too much.
Yeah.
So for the rest of the day driving around the mountain, we were kind of like bobbleheads in the back of the car, just go around the corner and your head would bob around.
Right.
Then I met with Samuel several times while I was there and after Teresa and Beth left. And on multiple occasions when we were all together, Samuel would call me, and within seconds, I would have to lay out on the ground because it's the only way that I could stabilize the energy going through my body.
My God.
And the rest of that journey is a personal communication that was for me. But I did return home. I was living on the Oregon coast then, and I spent 3 months just sitting, staring out the window in an altered state, just integrating what had happened. And my next door neighbor at the time was convinced that I'd had a psychotic break, called us. They were a scientist or an ex-scientist, and called a psychiatrist friend of theirs in New York who agreed that yes, he has, and he needs to get into treatment right away. And they would come over all concerned with this new information that surely I would absorb and seek treatment. And I just sat and smiled and laughed and said, no, everything is fine. So that was, I mean, it's definitely outside the wheelhouse of most people's experience. And I can understand how from the outside, somebody would have the perception that you've had a psychotic break.
Sure.
And so over the next few years, I continued to just integrate, continued to study, continued to very wisely not go public, but spend time just working on myself and other working through old stuck programs and misperceptions about who I was. And in 2020, 2022, 21 and 22, I returned again. I actually went the year before that too, but in January of 22, then I was recognized as a seer, as part of their group. I was recognized as the first ever 13th seer within the Katuyu people, which is really unusual. It's never happened before. And normally to receive the initiations that they go through, you have to fast by yourself in the Kenyan forest, which is primeval and unbelievably, it's never been cut. So the animals run through there just completely wild. There's everything there but lions. And normally you have to do a fast by yourself for 40 days. And then you receive the final initiations, which is they give you a series of herbal compounds. And the first one puts your body into a coma. The second one alters your consciousness. And if you survive, because historically not everybody did, and then they give you, if you do come back, they give you a third compound that revives the body, so it's not in a comatose state. I was told that I didn't have to do that. That by the work that I had done over the years, I had already done the equivalent of a 36-day cleansing and purification fast. And so all they did was give me the initiation. Now, here's the interesting thing. The initiation is designed to do what we already possess before we come into incarnation, and that is it removes the veils between you and your full awareness of the multidimensional being that you are.
Oh.
So all it's really doing is, it's not removing something, it's just restoring your original consciousness before you came into birth.
Right. The Eden template.
So, well, this is something different. The
Okay.
template is something.
Okay.
So you've experienced it already in the very first class that we offered,
Yeah.
and which is one that I offer usually on my birthday as a gift, is an awakening of the energy current at the base of your spine. You could call it a Kundalini awakening, and that's fine. I don't like the word.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't like the word, it's that I don't like using the word, because the moment that I do, everybody goes, oh, I know what that is. But if you haven't experienced it, you don't know what it is.
Sure. Sure.
So it's just opening that original current that comes directly from source. And when that opens, your original soul blueprint, your soul, when it was first created, it enters the body and then begins the process of whatever that process is for each individual, to them fully remembering who they are.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
And
Incredible.
it's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really fun.
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Beautiful. Well, thank you for all of that. Um, would you like to talk a little bit about your sense of what's happening on the planet right now and where humanity is at with its awakening and how this relates to what you're offering? How's that
As many,
general
but
topics of discussion?
yeah, just, can I express it in like 8 seconds?
Yeah, take your time. There's no rush, Dave. You know, plenty of time.
As many people on the planet now know to be the truth. As a collective, we have crossed a threshold. As we entered into the age of Aquarius, it's an entirely new epoch, and the old one is fading, not nearly quick enough for most of us, for most of us, but it is what it is. It's moving at the pace that it is. For those people that have been doing a lot of work on themselves and made huge progress clearing their distortions and their programs, ripping off all of those layers of falsehood of who they have self-identified as being,
Right.
revealing who they are underneath. From my perspective, we're all undergoing the transfiguration, which is what Yeshua underwent when he went into the desert for 40 days and 40 nights.
Yeah.
And when he came out the other side, he was the Christ. And I'm not saying that everybody is going to become the Christ, but the opportunity to embody that consciousness, to embody Christ consciousness. It's available, it's present, it's available to everybody. There is no discrimination. There is nobody that will be left behind unless that they choose to do something else.
Right.
The Gaia, the Earth, this beautiful Earth that we live on, this beautiful star in progress, she is ascending into higher frequencies, and if we want to continue to live on her, we have to match our frequencies with her. And really and truly, it just means that we have to give up everything. I don't care what it is. And by that, I don't mean you have to just walk away from your house and have a staff and a little backpack and start walking around. That's not what I mean. But we do have to surrender everything about ourselves, everything that we thought we were, everything that we thought about who we were, any place inside of us that we have something that we consider a self-identification, including a personality. And that energy necessary to do that work is here. It's present in and phenomenal. It's difficult to describe how much energy is really here, and the intensity of it or the amplification of it is very strong, and it's available to everybody. And there are a lot of people that are in complete and total resistance. You've heard me say how many times we can either take this journey with ease and grace, or we can be drug kicking and screaming. And there are some people on the planet that are not just kicking and screaming, they are absolutely refusing that they are going to change, period. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a choice. Everybody has a choice. We all have free will to a certain point. We have free will to do this journey or not. But once you're fully on it, it's almost as if your personal sense of will dissolves, and it just aligns with the Creator, with Source, with God, and you just give it up. So there are more than a few people that will choose to repeat the third grade again, and that's fine. We don't get upset about that in our educational system. If a child has to repeat a year, it's just what it is. And there are lots of people that are just barely beginning the process of remembering who they are. Some people would call it waking up. It doesn't matter. The language seems to be completely incapable of accurately describing this. So, but what's coming is, I can't speak too specifically, but it's beyond our ability to comprehend how magnificent it's going to be. And the way that we arrive at that consciousness is not going off into the fantasy of a future. The way that we arrive in that consciousness is by coming into our body here and now and be present in this moment. So as you do your work, as you cleanse yourself of all of the programming that we've all incorporated into ourselves, either from the country we live in, or the culture we live in, or our familiar lines, or our ancestral lines, or religious programming, whatever it is, as we shed that, we gradually begin to remember who we are at whatever speed that we're working with. And as that happens, the frequency of the body purifies and it raises. And when it reaches a certain point, it's pure enough that the energy of your auric field around you is pure enough that your soul can literally come in. And now you live as a soul in your body. In other words, you become an embodied master in the flesh. In the old way of doing it is someone would become realized, and they might just instantly drop their body and go back into non-physical, go back into spirit. That's not what we're doing now. Now we're learning how to embody that same mastery level in the physical body. But you have to purify the body first in order to get its vibration to raise enough that your soul can come into it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. You know, as I say, you've taken us in the classes on you know, each class is a journey unto itself, into a different aspect of this greater experience of what you've just described, our eternal oneness with all that is, and unconditional love. And again, words are just weak you know, efforts to describe the indescribable. You know, I'm fascinated.
We're waiting for full telepathy.
Yes, that's, I'm sure that's coming soon. What I, as I said earlier, that was very helpful and very, very beautiful. you know, you have such a clear understanding of this very elegant puzzle that, you know, you move us through, you and spirit move us through, you know, in the 12-week journey of the class, you know, one step at a time. And, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, freedom of the known, this is a class you've done, you know, for a while. And if you're operating from this evolving sense, it's always changing. I recognize that, respect that. But, you know, you have a really clear map of this journey that you bring to us each week. Was that a fair statement?
Yes and no.
Okay. Oh,
Because it's not a linear journey.
okay.
If you think of it as a shamanic journey, anything can happen at any time. I've had people that have done the course come to me that have, in essence, done the course privately, like one person,
Yeah.
and they started their starting point was the very last class, and their end point, if you will, was the very first class. So the very last step can happen first, and it can jumble up and kind of like the dice game boggle, where you stir up a bunch of dice inside of you and see how they land.
Sure.
It doesn't really matter.
Sure. That's fair. I'm just trying to, you know, sort of understand with you, my friend, a little more clearly how, you know, did all this information and this being a guide in this way that you are for all of us in your work. You know, in other words, you have such a clear map of the levels of consciousness, the body, the connection to all of these things with the universe. I'm just trying to understand where all that came from. Did that come from your experience with the Kenyans, or was that evolving over the years from 2012?
It's constantly been evolving, and thank God it didn't just come all at once. It would have been a little overwhelming.
It's
But and yet at another level, it did all come at once. It's just been, and as you know, it's not static.
yeah.
Yes, I'm getting ready to offer the Freedom from the Known course for the 9th time,
Okay.
and every single time has been different.
Right.
Every single time.
Right.
There may be a core. Imagine it like there's a core skeleton,
Okay.
but every time new stuff gets new muscles and facial features and everything gets put onto the skeleton. Sometimes it's a little thin, and other times it's very fat,
Right.
and you never know what it's going to look like. You never know what it's going to feel like. I literally never once the meditation start, I literally never know what is going to come out of my mouth.
Sure. Sure. I mean, sometimes.
It,
Sorry. Go on.
it's just in the moment, in
Yeah.
the energy of the moment, and to a certain degree, not completely, but to a certain degree, it's the cohesiveness of the energy of the group that creates the field that the transmission comes through.
Yes.
So that's one of the more important things that happens during the 11 to 12 weeks that the class goes on,
Yeah.
is that there is a really in-depth energetic field bonding that happens between all of the participants. And there's always people that come energetically to participate in the class, in the meditations. I can't say for certain why they're there, but I just know that there's always people that are attending. Maybe they can't physically participate because of whatever circumstances it is. Maybe they're doing it as a test run. Maybe that's their agreement that they'll get it energetically this way.
Yeah.
So it's always fun, and so the field is always variable.
Yeah.
And, and I just sit in stillness and watch and feel what comes through.
Beautiful. So I guess I'm curious, did that depth of information and wisdom start coming to you before 2012, after 2012, after the Kenyan initiation?
All of the above.
Okay, fair answer. Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, David, this is one of
Was that was was I aware of it back in 2011, 2012 to the depth that I am now? No,
right, right.
not at all.
But you were thinking about these things. You were tuned into this.
I don't know if thinking's a word that I would use, but I was aware of them.
Okay, I'll settle for that. I'm being
No
very
one,
over here, trying to
no,
understand the pieces of the puzzle.
I would say no one's ever going to accuse me of being a really deep thinker, and yet my experiences are very deep.
Yeah,
My awareness and my knowingness of the universe and beyond, and how the energetic streams work and what it's like to be in them, including being completely and totally flattened and unable to move. There's several people that I know that are experiencing that right now. Their bodies are undergoing such a phenomenal change. So when I spoke earlier of the transfiguration, what that really means is that every single cell in your body, every single atomic and subatomic particle in your body has to release any programming that is contained within it in order to be able to fully embody the energy that's going on. And that's sometimes that's ease and grace.
yeah.
some and it's really nice when it is, and sometimes it's not so much. But
Yes.
it always is what it is.
Well, I've had the privilege and the pleasure of enjoying these journeys in the hospital bed and at the rest home. And yeah, it's divine timing whenever these moments of grace happen, and your ability is extraordinary, David. Sometimes you're giving us a 20-minute meditation, sometimes it's an hour and 40 minutes. We never know what the journey's going to provide, but it's always amazing.
Neither do I.
Sure,
Neither
sure,
neither do I.
sure. Beautiful, beautiful.
And I, I I would like to clarify one thing,
Okay.
and that was my first trip to Africa in 2018. Yes, I did go to Kenya and Mount Kenya. Yes, I did receive a phenomenal activation. And yes, I did return home, but David didn't.
Yeah, yeah. You were transformed by your experience. Yeah.
David went back to remedial school for a little while,
Well,
and
David enjoyed staring out of his front window for a few months and thinking it over. Yeah.
no, David wasn't there. He wasn't
No.
present, able to look out the window.
Yeah.
Um, he has returned. It's necessary that he return and be integrated. It's just there is a very subtle distinction there,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's important for people to understand, because I've read this wonderful quote by Paul Dupre this morning, talking about how most people, they hear some kind of transmission that somebody's received, that something wonderful is coming 10 or 20 days from now, and they start living and preparing for that event, forgetting to be fully present here in this moment now. This is it. There is nothing else. You future trip, you're just dissolving yourself.
Yeah.
You're just diffusing yourself. You have to be present in the body And so it's really about just being in presence in that beautiful state of beingness where you are completely and totally aligned with your soul, aligned to your higher self, aligned to source, the creator, God, whatever word you wish to use. And it seems to be that the farther we walk on this path, that the less and less wiggle room there is for
Oh,
that.
yes.
That line becomes really, really fine and then becomes even more fine.
Yes. My metaphor is the higher up the mountain, the narrower the path.
Yeah, that works.
Thank you. And it is true. And there's, um, it's a great gift to be a part of a community, a collective, a tribe, a family, of like-minded people that are created over these 12 weeks, 11 or 12 weeks, where we really, you really do hold that space and share that space with us to, as I said earlier, to go just to the core of things
You cut,
without judgment.
you cut out of it.
Oh, that we're in that space together. Yeah, we're in that space together of going as deep as possible and supporting each other, loving each other, accepting each other. You hold that space, with us, and it's a very powerful thing to be in your class. And I just want people to understand what a huge gift it is, what's being offered.
Thank you, Luke. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And at the same time, remember, I don't think there's anything at all. I know that I'm different than most people, but I don't think there's anything special about me. Just like there isn't anything special about you. You are undeniably you, and that's wonderful. But there's nothing different about me than is what is present in every single other person here on the planet.
Yeah. Yes and no, I'm going to say, my brother. I mean, the great thing about your commitment and faith and the depth of your surrender in your own personal story is that coming, David went to Africa. David didn't really come back to the US. Somebody else, some other part of you, the bigger part of you came back to the US. And you are able to help us see from that bigger part of you and to understand that bigger part of ourselves. And that's a lovely gift. That's a powerful gift.
Excuse me, I would agree.
Thank you. Thank you. You let me get away with it once. Thank you.
It is a gift.
Yes. Yes.
People say all kinds of things about me, and I usually do my best to diffuse it.
You do very well, but I'm very persistent, you see. So, and you've given me quite a lot. I'm wanting to return the kindness. I think of another Ram Dass who I know we both love and adore. It just went out of my head. Well, his great line, of course, is "We're all just walking each other home."
That's all that's happening.
Yeah, and so I, as you know, and you were so supportive. I went through this 50-day journey of healing just recently. I'm just back a couple weeks on Thursday, and of 36 days in the hospital and 14 days in a rest home. And what I want to come to here is walking each other home. That when we go through these crises, healing crisis, a financial crisis, an existential crisis, we have to remember where home is. You've told me about your own healing journeys, in other conversations, and when your body's not working or other things that you rely on aren't working, it really is in our own hearts, and sharing that space with each other and being in the present moment, as you said. Eckhart Tolle has been a wonderful teacher for me about that in the last few years as well. And so I'm not sure what I'm reaching for, but Ram Dass was a guy. Yeah, Ram Dass was a guy. I think you and I really, really respect Ram Dass because he really was 100% committed, and there was a total devotion to love and service. In his journey, in his walk, and there wasn't a bunch of excess hanging off of him by the time he was ready to go. Did you ever see the documentary of his stroke, surviving his stroke?
Yes.
Okay, and so Fierce Grace, I think it's called, and
Ask me if I remember it, and the answer would be no.
okay,
But I
okay,
have seen it.
okay. Well, so I think it's in the documentary, but it might have been in one of his stories where he says he had a dream where he had died in his dream, and he was taken into the afterlife, and there were all these people there in the dream, uh, you know, and someone said he's not ready yet, send him back, and he came back into himself and woke up from the dream. And I think this was before the stroke happened, and if I remember correctly, he actually had the stroke because he was imagining what it would be like to be old and not able to use his healthy young body. And I think the stroke happened shortly after that. Um, anyway, that we're part of such a big picture, David. I want to give it back to you here. We're part of such
You're
a yeah. I'm coming and going. Sorry.
you're lucky.
Okay. Are we there? I'll finish by saying this, and then I'll give it to you.
You're really locked up.
Okay. How about now?